First of those is you really need to look at how you're working and how your job is structured, and maybe even think about redesigning or rethinking that job. And I know that sounds a bit radical, but up until recently, the majority of jobs have been offered on the basis of hours worked for pay rewarded, and also the longer rewards of promotion, etc. Now that might work in some areas. For example, if you're a customer services assistant, obviously you need to be in a job for a certain number of hours. But for a lot of us, it's more about outputs. It's more about how we use the best skills, the ones that we've been hired for, to get the outputs that are really going to make the most difference to our employer. And unfortunately, what also happens is, for a lot of us, things get in the way that are not particularly productive. And we know what a lot of those things are. You know, they're the usual suspects that take up a lot of time, but don't actually add very much to the results at the end of the day. So I think now is the time to actually find a few moments, and I know for some people this can be quite difficult because you've got so much going on around you, to actually sit down and to think about what are the key things that you were hired for, what are the key outputs that are required from you, and maybe have that conversation with your manager as well about what are the key things that are expected from you beyond, well, you should be working 7 hours a day or whatever it is. I've been saying, I recognise that it can be hard to put in, big boundaries. But again, there's a lady at UCL, Anna Cox, who is doing research into human-computer interaction, who talks about micro-boundaries. So rather than saying, right, okay, I'm going to spend the next 2 hours doing X or the next hour commuting, we can have small boundaries. For example, we can decide that there's going to be an hour of family time on the weekend when we're just not going to deal with work at all. We can negotiate with our partner, if we're fortunate enough to have a partner, or maybe with older children, that for the next half hour I'm just going to focus on work and nothing else. We can choose to switch our phones off or put them into night mode when we sleep. So, there are these little things that you can do which are micro boundaries, but the more used you get to doing them, research has shown, the more likely you are to do them and also to see the positive effects of them.
Yeah.
What's happened in this current situation is we've got something else going on, which I term, and this is my own term, it's not in the literature yet, called role confusion. And one of the things about roles is we have a cue and we act in a certain role. So you're at home and you're with your children, you're playing the role of mother. You're in the office or you're in your home office, you're working and you're playing the role of employee, and you know what that means. Now, in the current circumstances, you could be in a situation, and I know from looking at social media that many people are, where you're working at the kitchen desk while your other half is trying to amuse the children, or there may not be another half, and you're worrying about what the kids are doing, etc., etc. So you're muddling all these roles at the same time. You suddenly get a work call, you suddenly have to switch into that, and what happens is we get an element of what psychologists have called cognitive dissonance, where we're trying to balance all these roles together, and it takes an awful lot of mental energy to do that and to keep switching between those roles. So if you can be a bit clearer on what is expected of those roles, then that makes life a little bit easier. But what that means is that you have to rethink what it means for you to be a professional working parent at the moment. And before the rest of you lovely people joined us, Alison and I were just talking about interruptions, and of course the one we all know about, that great BBC interview where the guy's trying to give a really serious answer to some economic question, and suddenly his toddler comes in on one of those baby walkers. And, in the past that would have been, oh gosh, that is just so unprofessional. But maybe we need to think about what we mean by professional. And maybe professional now has to mean talking to your colleagues or clients or anybody else and saying, look, I am also a working parent. I have got children of whatever age at home. I may be interrupted. If I am, I will call you back as quickly as I can or reschedule this call, because obviously I'm trying to do my best here for you, but I also need to look after my family. So it's about being more open and more honest, particularly about all that hidden caring that we have done and tried to pretend isn't happening because we are professionals, because our professional role is the only thing that we're focusing on.
It's so
favours, but of course when women entered the working world in huge numbers, we only had a male playbook. We didn't have anything else. Now we can begin thinking about how do we rewrite that? How do we bring more of ourselves into the workplace and say, well, these are experiences outside of work that are important, and this is all part of who I am, and I embrace that as a professional woman. I don't have to pretend that that's a low priority or somebody else is always dealing with it.
and
But one of the things you can do if you're furloughed, and again, this depends on your circumstances and if you have time, is you can do some training. And that's it's been made clear that you are able to be trained, and your employer can train you if your employer wants to. So in terms of work-life balance, what that means is that you can obviously take this time to look at whether there are some skills that might help you improve your own work-life balance. It may be that you want to have access to things like my book or workbook that I was talking about earlier, or access to other books. I don't know how that works in terms of getting support from employers, but you can do things now that will prepare you to have better work-life balance when the pandemic is over. So even if you've been furloughed and thinking, well, this doesn't really apply to me at the moment, do make the most of this opportunity if you can, to think about how you could be working smarter rather than longer or harder once we're out of this.
But that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Lots of practical and inspiring food for thought there, which is exactly what we want, of course. And of course, if you want to find out more, if you want to look at Anna's process for having those difficult conversations, for really thinking through how you design your job, her book, Upcycle Your Job, is brilliant. And it's on offer on Kindle this week, 99p, 99 cents. So yeah, do grab that. In fact, I say this week, it's the end of this month, isn't it?
Yes, we'll keep it like that till the end of April.
Yeah, brilliant. And then just a final few words from me as I wrap up. Do join us next week. We've got Productivity Ninja Grace Marshall on converting in-person training to online training. And the following week, we've got ex-BBC journalist and PR guru Mike Sargent on managing communications in a crisis. And as I said before, if you've got any issues, any topics you particularly like us to cover, then just get in touch, alison@alisonjones.com. And of course, if you'd like to explore becoming a practical inspiration author yourself, I'd love to hear from you. We are very proud to be publishing partners with leaders in a wide range of fields, like Anna, of course, and you can find out more about us at practicalinspiration.com. And then one last tiny plug, the 10-day business book proposal challenge starts again on the 20th of April. So if you have an idea for a business book, if you'd like to take it forward, if you'd like to perhaps win a publishing deal, then do sign up for that. I will put a link in the email that you'll receive shortly with a link to the recording of the webinar, together with all the bibliography of the books that we've discussed today. And I'll also give you a discount code for that. And that really is it. So thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Anna, for fantastic
Thanks,
food
Alison.
for thought. It's really good to talk to you, and hopefully see you all back soon for another Practical Inspiration webinar. Goodbye.